Hi, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining us. This is Ronan Vengosh, and I am VP of Platform and Ecosystem for Egnyte. And with me today is Derek Novak, Senior Director of Business Development and Channels at DocuSign. Hey, Derek, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm very excited about this conversation, and we've worked together as partners for a few years now, and you are one of the first partners that I met when I joined Egnyte, and so I know we have a lot to talk about. But I want to start with some of the basics. The first question is, what does your role entail at DocuSign?
Great question, and again, thank you for having me. And yes, we've been working together for almost 5 years now. Here at DocuSign, I am responsible for North America business development, the ISV ecosystem, and channel sales, and that includes Canada and the United States. Really what I and my team do is create partnering strategies for our commercial customer segments, recruiting and managing partners in those segments, and working with partners on integrations and aligning partners with our sales teams on prospective opportunities.
That's great. One of the things that I'm always interested in is this question of scale. And when we started working together all these years ago, DocuSign was significantly smaller, so was Egnyte. But in that time frame, you guys grew incredibly fast. You now have close to 500,000 customers, 300 pre-built integrations. Egnyte obviously being one of those partners. And what I'd like to know is, what is your secret, if there is a secret, for growing and scaling the ecosystem in the way that you've been able to do?
We've been really fortunate here at DocuSign to be able to tremendously scale our programs and our partnerships over the last few years. I think there are three big takeaways or key points that I'll share. One is that scale, you have to think about scale differently in that it really does take resources and a repeatable motion. And so many times people go into partnerships like this is just thinking about the partnership, and you need to think about so many partnerships. And to scale so many partnerships, it takes resources, not only from your team, but other departments and teams. And so I highly recommend people who are thinking about scaling a program, first understand some internal processes from different departments where you can plug into, and so that you don't have to use resources to do everything. So for example, at DocuSign, we have a great referral program, a lot of referral partners. And as we scaled that and as we developed that offering that program, we worked closely with our accounts payable to understand how we generally pay all our vendors, and then just snapping into that process. Rather than having a whole separate process of how we pay partners, it was easy for me to say this, and they said, oh, we always pay at the end of the month. And then I've tailored the agreement to their process and able to plug into their processes and their resources to actually scale.
So rather than kind of inventing your own process to support partners, you're piggybacking on an existing company process and leveraging that, so you don't need to buy kind of new, you don't need to create new ground to make that work.
Exactly, because when you really do start to scale, and we are processing on a monthly basis, hundreds of thousands of referral deals, and big checks, like it takes resources. Secondly, I think when you think through that, you need to make your program offering really beneficial, easy to agree with, and with limited obligations. And what I mean by that is, like, you almost need to make it a little too rich or a little too easy to say yes to, because if you go out and recruit 1,000 partners and you need them to all snap in to say this payment process, well, if the payment process is really hard, or you're only going to pay them once a year or something, is not going to work, you're going to have to negotiate with every single partner, and then you get back to the one-off scenario, and it's not scaling. So as you design your offering, make it a little richer so that people almost say yes, because ultimately at scale, you just want a lot of people to say yes.
And I think you're making a fantastic point here, and I would assume that most folks listening to this who have done business development for a while, have come across this partnership opportunity where the prospective partner gives you a, a 40-page document that you need to kind of take through legal, and it's not that you can't, you can, but it adds friction to the process. It becomes much heavier. All of a sudden, there's another stakeholder in this process that might object, and of course, from the company who's running the partnership program, it really makes it easy or harder to scale efficiently. Are there any practices that you had early on that you had to kind of grow out of, or kind of learn to drop after a while as you were kind of pursuing scale?
Yes, I mean, and that actually dovetails nicely into my last point is you don't know what the future may bring in any of your agreements. And so I really strongly, as you think about them and as you start your program, where you start is not where you may be in a year, 2, 5, 10 years down the road. And so I would think deeply about termination clauses, and using program guides. Program guides allows you to sort of outline operational things that you can change without having to open up an agreement again. And then also termination clauses. Unfortunately, I do have to terminate agreements, but it's more non-renewals and just get people up on newer agreements. And some of that right now is happening where we have old partners on agreements that are 10 years old. And now as a public company, there are certain things that have just changed. And we've had to go back to those partners and say, hey, due to these legal clauses, we just need to get you up on our newest partner program paper. And so I think about the future where you may have to make some changes and make sure you have the flexibility and the ability to do that easily and not be living with that. There's one agreement we have here that it's a 5-year agreement without any outs. And there are some things that are not working well and we would love to update it, but we can't.
You're kind of stuck. And I've seen that myself. I think it actually is beneficial for both partners in the context of a partnership agreement to have kind of well-crafted exit points and ways to update the system. For smaller companies, it might come up in the course of an acquisition or so forth, where the acquirer doesn't want you locked into long-term agreements. For larger companies, just as you described, there's this issue of adapting to kind of new guidelines and legal requirements, but that flexibility needs to be there. So I completely agree with that philosophy. One of the things that we talked about in the past is you told me you're getting something like 5 or 6 new partner applications a day, which is pretty aggressive. Do you guys still go out to recruit technology partners these days actively from your side?
DocuSign has an open partner program. So we do get a lot of inquiries and a lot of people sign up on a much scalable fashion, but we are still, as DocuSign continues to grow and our new DocuSign Agreement Cloud offering, not only are we're recruiting basically 2 types of technology partners. Those horizontal systems of record, whether they are CRM, ERP, HCM, et cetera, and a number of other categories to help support our DocuSign Agreement Cloud vision and ultimately customer choice, because customers have made strategic investments in a lot of other stacks. So that's one area that we are actively recruiting. And then the other one is really, as we continue to grow and go into new industries, we look for leaders in other industries that can help us create a better together story and a joint value prop to those customers. And so we recruit industry folks as well with industry solutions.
So is it as simple as kind of doing a market assessment and identifying kind of the leading players in the specific market and then going after those, or is there something else that you guys use to decide how to target your efforts?
So yes, there's a strategy at every market that we go. Every market's in a bit of a different state and flux, but understanding the dynamics of the market, it may not be the leader, but it may be someone who is growing fast and driving the change in the industry. We have a really great partner in construction, and there's some old players in construction, also good partners, but they haven't been innovating as fast enough, and it's opened up an opportunity for another partner. And we have a great partnership with that with that newer and innovative partner, and together we've sort of ridden that wave. So that's part of it. I will also add a little trick that I've always seen done really well, is that the number two partner is always looking for something new to beat the number one person in the industry. So for those who are newer to recruiting, it's always a good strategy. How do you bag the number one? You get the number two.
You get the guy with a chip on their shoulder and kind of hope things will fall the right way as well. Yeah, we have a kind of we subscribe to that same strategy. We also have kind of what we call the domino effect, where it's always hardest to get your first partner in a specific space, but once you've been able to kind of get two dominoes in place, the third and the fourth start falling right down the chain. Because if you've got partnerships in the space, it's much easier for your prospective partner to make the business case by relying on some of their competitors' judgment to validate the decision.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Have you found that to be a fairly common thing as well, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. If it's a good idea, everybody's going to jump on board. But most people
the trick is making sure people understand you're a good idea. That's where the $64,000 question resides.
Yes, or getting the first person to jump in with you. Yes, and second person, that is. But after you get, you get two partners in a certain area, the others will tend to follow, and we've seen that across the board in different places.
Do you use any special inducements for those first partners? Is that something you subscribe to, or is it just on the merits of the deal?
When I'm really looking for, I don't care, actually. I don't focus too much on the deal or making special concessions for the first one. I really, really focus on just the customers. Getting a significant portion of customers that are saying, like, we want this. And I think any good partner out there, any good company out there is doing right by their customers and has a good customer sat score and listens to their customers. And so that's what I really look on and focus. Too many times people call me and say, "Oh, I got this great idea," and I'm like, "Do you have any customers that are saying, yes, we want this and we'll pay for it?" And too many times that people are like, "Well, they'll come," and I'm like, no. I mean, I got another partner we're talking to. We have 60 customers who are saying, we want something. Can you guys figure it out? And we're going to figure out, because we're both customer-centric companies. And if people aren't listening to their customers, you have to ask yourself whether you really want to partner.
Right. It absolutely is. It's the voice of the customer. It's one of the toughest things, I think, for inexperienced folks to kind of realize in business development is that our intuitions are so often wrong, right? It's like you think something's going to work great, and then you spend the work, the resources, the engineering cycles, and you release it to the wild and nothing happens. And you do that once or twice, and you kind of learn that your intuition is not great, and you start to rely on these kind of incontrovertible market signals. If a customer tells you, "Hey, that's what I want," that counts for so much more than you thinking that the deal is a good deal.
Yes, I would also say that in my experience, revenue helps the bumps in the road. So if you have a couple paying customers and you're getting that revenue, and the first iteration of the integration isn't right, but with money coming in with it, that tends to fix things.
There's a justification to keep investing, for sure. I think it also creates a lock-in, right? I mean, you're okay. You already have a customer base on this. It's not working. What are we going to do? Are we going to roll it back? And we're going to try to end of life. That's going to cause some problems with the customers. Totally, I completely subscribe to that idea. So, Derek, there's one of the things I'm curious about is how your team is structured. First of all, how big is your team, and then how is it structured?
There are 9 people on my team. It's a great team. I couldn't do it without them. So generally, I have BD globally at DocuSign is quite large, actually, 85 people. We have a number of groups under that 85. We have programs people, we have technical people, we have partner marketing, we have strategic alliance directors that are global attached to some of our strategic alliances. But the majority is what we call field BD, and that owns the partnering in their focus segment geos. And so most of my people on my team are aligned to different segments and driving the partner strategy and the partnerships in that segment. So I have someone on healthcare life science. I have someone on financial services and another person on EDU and the other industries, as well as what we have a catch-all for customer segment. It's not on a dedicated industry of geos, but there are emerging initiatives going on in construction and retail that I have some people focused on. In addition to that, and so those people really work with our sales teams and the partners in those segments to drive the strategy. In addition to that, I have some people who are focused more on the sort of partner side of the business and segments. And I have one person just focused on channel sales. So he's just working out with his channel sales sellers, defining deals. And I have one person on my team managing the horizontal ISV ecosystem.
Got it. So for the most part, field BD aligned by industry, some geos and some kind of, I guess, ecosystem general management. And how do you measure success? What are the metrics? What are the criteria that you use to measure your team's value, I guess?
Yeah. So the very tangible way which we do here at DocuSign as a public company is revenue. Yeah, it's either revenue that is resold by a reseller or revenue that is referred by one of our great referral partners, or we actually resell some people, so it's that revenue. It's one of the common metrics across all the different partner types that we measure. I think two is generally executing against plan. And that's where I really focus with my people, is building the right plan and executing against it, and the revenue will flow. Someone kidded with me earlier a couple of weeks ago. It's like, dashboards never change by just staring at them.
Yep.
So you have to go out there, engage with partners, and having great go-to-market plans that you execute against. And so that's what I'm personally manage my people towards. Like, what's the plan? How are we doing? Because in the partner business, there'll be slips, there will be bumps in the road. So I don't worry too much about the revenue. It's the output of great effort and input.
And what makes for a good plan from your perspective? Like, how do you know that your plan is a good one as you're putting it together? Or is it really like putting something together, testing it out, and then learning and tweaking?
Yeah. So number one is, I think, really good alignment on goals between you and your partner. There are too many times I've seen partnerships where one side has $1 million goal and the other side has a $10 million goal. And when you end up at 1.5 million for the year, the plan, you need to start with a common goal that you're almost aligned on, because a plan that to support 10 million is very different than 1 million.
Yep.
So that is number one. And I'm always like really clear on that. And setting expectations early is critical, and getting alignment from the top, because you'll get resources down. And then it depends on the partnership a little bit. Again, what is the goal? If it's revenue or if it's something else, there are other, is it just getting in the market? We do a bunch of partnerships for free trials too. We have a big web business. Like, what's the goal and what is the number? And then in my mind, a lot of it is just metrics. Okay, well, if it's $1 million goal, what does that mean? What does the customers look like? How many customers do we want? In my mind, it's just breaking it down into the measurable blocks and tackling things.
Got it. So setting expectations, having clear measurable outputs, and kind of creating these blocks that you can kind of test.
Yeah, and I mean, they break down to, okay, product. If there's an integration, making sure the product is sound, what your joint value and your joint solution is sound. Once you have, of course, enablement, making sure people understand it and can speak to it, demo it, understand the joint value. So training, and that's sales and SC and et cetera. And then of course you got to market it. So how are you going to go to market? And press release events that you're going to show up together, each other's events, like how are you going to market and build awareness? And then ultimately longer term, like how do you support those customers and make them successful?
Right. So you mentioned before kind of your guys' focus on vertical industries, and we as a team have collaborated with you guys in specific industries. We've done some work in construction. We've done some work in life sciences, where both of our companies kind of support 21 CFR Part 11 type compliance requirements, which is big in that space. If you're setting out as a new, in a new role, trying to build a vertical industry strategy, do you have any advice that folks should follow and to kind of increase their chances of success, or is it really just kind of hard work and nose to the grindstone?
It's a great question, and we see this over and over again. And I have a couple of relevant examples that are going on right now where, I think a lot of solutions like DocuSign, Egnyte that can play are so horizontal and can play so well and feel like they're so well known for their horizontal solution. But industries present like a really interesting opportunity in my mind for horizontal applications like ourselves to go deeper and solve a unique industry problem. But I find where a lot of people trip up is they don't have the humility when they go into that industry to understand that they're not a big player in that industry. DocuSign may be this huge player, but there are industries we're new to. And I went earlier this year to HIMSS. It is a huge healthcare life science convention and session. And to be honest, I spent 3 days just talking to partners more about their industry. And everybody was like, hey, listen, I bought a house with DocuSign. I know DocuSign. You're great. Thank you for buying or selling my house. But what are you doing in healthcare a little bit? And, there are strengths that we are playing against, which are, hey, we do well with procurement and HR. People got to hire people, HR, again, those horizontal use cases, but starting to understand the industry, and there are some very specific use cases like doctor credentialing or revenue cycle management, and that we are trying to tailor our approach to. And so do your research, and then, you have to tell a different story. So push your marketing team who says, oh yeah, you can tell the same story anywhere, but it doesn't resonate with those people because everybody feels like they are, yes, your application can play everywhere, but people want to feel special. And so that time and effort in making your marketing people talk a little bit more about doctors or patients instead of customers and clients, it's those little changes in the marketing material and how you talk in the industry and how you go to market, like, make the difference.
So I'm hearing kind of adapting the lingo. I'm hearing kind of have some humility about this and tell an industry specific story. Those are kind of the big elements here. And I would subscribe to that. At Egnyte these days, we're investing heavily in vertical industries, and we've actually bought expertise. So we're hiring individuals that come from the specific industries that can help us tell these stories, and our full-time Egnyte team members, and kind of have built-in networks and understand the areas in which they operate. And one of the things that we've discussed before is how important do you think that expertise or industry-specific expertise is for business development folks? Is that something we should be worried about? Is that something like that folks in our industry or in our profession need to pay a lot of attention to? Or can we be kind of business development generalists and learn the story and kind of know how to speak to folks in their native tongue, if you will?
Generally, yes. Especially for industries that are either highly regulated or have very nuanced initiatives and sales cycles and customers, like government and federal. So I could see every industry has nuances, but like, for instance, in construction, it's not as regulated, or our use case is not as regulated that we go to industry with. And so we've been able to get by without industry knowledge, and really have a lot of success there. But it took some learning, versus healthcare or state government or some of our other more regulated industries. Knowing the healthcare space and how the different players and the dynamics between those players has really accelerated our go-to-market strategy in those industries. I would say lastly, if it is an industry that has very large players, that move slowly, again, getting someone from industry who brings the Rolodex with them and knows the people at those places and can really open doors a lot faster can save you 6 or 12 months in your go-to-market.
Yeah, I think I generally agree with that conclusion. There are some industries where unless you kind of know how they operate, it's going to take you a long time. And by the way, the same is true for some prospective partners. There are some of these industry behemoths out there that have been kind of doing work in a certain way for a very long time. They have large market shares and fairly slow-moving internal processes, and unless you have somebody that kind of understands how these organizations work and perhaps knows the relevant people and different places of the company, you might spend 6 or 12 months looking for the right people that can make a decision or that will make a decision, and you could save yourself a lot of pain by kind of purchasing that expertise. Okay, great. So I think Derek, we're coming up on the end of our conversation today, and I always like to end these conversations by asking my colleague about to tell us about one kind of big deal that they've done throughout their career that they're particularly proud of, that there's something special about, something folks can perhaps learn something from. So let me turn that question to you, Derek. What example do you have of what is your favorite deal, I guess?
Yeah. I'm going to I have two really favorite partnerships that I think about when I think about a deal, anybody can sign something. DocuSign enables that to be done fairly quickly in about a day. But it's really like for me, and when I look at people and my team and we driving for success, it's really like where the rubber hits the road and it's a go-to-market plan and actually executing against it. And I think that really separates, some individuals from others, is that, okay, that's great that you were able to recruit and have a compelling event and then sign something with your counterpart, but how do you influence and get another organization to do, this partnership and really go to market and all the different players and pieces to it. And, we have a great partnership in construction and their execs have basically done a lot of studying on our partnership and seen that, we decrease their churn rate by 3x. So they go, generally, so for instance, their churn rate is around 15%. It's actually under 5% with people using their solution in DocuSign. And, that has been just and it's taken a lot of time and effort of like go to market and getting customers and getting them successful and the revenue and everything. But it's just a special partnership because it is, very unique. Not all partnerships do this, but create that additional value for everybody involved. And, obviously we're seeing the decreased churn on our side and the customers are seeing much more adoption. They're much more happier. And so the partnerships that I love are the ones that are not necessarily just splitting a pie, but really growing the pie and creating value. And so that's one that's going on. And the interesting thing that I would also say, we've had this partnership now for a couple of years, and I began it, is it's changed, and it's evolved. And now we're going to do new things. And we're building up previous successes to even go bigger. And so I would say, success breeds success. And for those younger professionals out there who are thinking about inking a huge deal, and has multi parts to it of go to market around the globe in each region and everything. I would say start with one region, make it successful, and it's much easier to get bigger and better buy-in in the future after you've done one thing successful with the partner. So, and
have something to build on.
Yeah.
When did you know that this partnership was going to be successful? Was it when you were negotiating it? Was it after kind of some time in the market?
Again, if customers wanted it, there were customers driving us to do something.
So this was a customer-driven opportunity that you followed up on.
Yeah, I mean, it was part customer and a part. This is a great partner, and they saw just a change in the construction industry, and they've sort of, there's a dynamic change in the construction industry, and they've sort of attacked it. And so I always thought that what they're doing is the right thing for that industry, and so pairing ourselves with that and their vision has been good for us. It's like you're on a path to growth, and I'll ride that wave with you.
Got it. Was there some sort of, I don't know, magic element to that deal, or anything unique that made it click, or was it really just the fact that it's the right place at the right time with the right partner?
It's more the right place, right time, but I'm going to stress that when I talk to partners, I really want to understand their corporate strategy and where they are going. And because if I think it's a place of growth, I'm more likely to partner with them than I think I've talked to partners, and they may be headed in a direction, but it's definitely not a direction that our partnership would go. And so I think through that of, hey, if your company is marching north, but our partnership is going to be marching south, like how successful is that going to be? This one, they were definitely marching towards digitizing and getting rid of paper in the construction industry and helping mobility and people become more agreeable. And that's just like checking the boxes on the DocuSign and what DocuSign does. And so I think listening to their vision, understanding that it really aligns to how DocuSign solution and our vision, I knew it was going to be a recipe for success.
So Derek, on those notes, this was a really, really interesting conversation. I thank you for taking the time. This has been Derek Novak, Senior Director of Business Development and Channels at DocuSign. Derek, always a pleasure. Thanks for being here and doing this with me.
Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. And this has been Ronan Van Gosh with Egnyte. Bye-bye.